I played 4 remastered shooters from the 2000s, and I'm putting them against each other in a head-to-head battle. Hello, I'm GalicEnder, and welcome to part 2 of Game Bracket, featuring 2000 shooters remastered. During round 1, we put Halo 2 Anniversary against Metroid Prime Remastered. So if you haven't seen that yet, there will be a link in the description, so please, go give it a watch. But now it's time to put 2 sci-fi nightmares against each other. One takes you to the stars, and the other brings you under the sea. I'm of course talking about Dead Space 2023 and Bioshock Remastered. So, without any hesitation, let's first board the Ishimura with space engineer Isaac Clarke. It's time to know fear, isolation, the emptiness of the void, and to always expect the unexpected, and to make us whole again. Dead Space 2023 is a third-person shooter survival horror game that has been faithfully recreated from the 2008 original. You play as Isaac, an engineer who is sent off on a repair and rescue mission for the space station Ishimura. When approaching the station, something feels off. We didn't even get a boarding transmission from the Ishimura's crew before docking. When on board, every room is empty, and worst of all, there's blood everywhere. And this is where things start to get extreme, so if you're sensitive to blood and gore, you have been warned. After examining the security terminal in the control room, the horror abruptly introduces itself. A mangled humanoid monster busts through the ceiling and impales one of our crew members, sending the others fleeing in a panic, and all Isaac can do is watch. After a quick reconnect with the team, the threat arrives again, and all you can do is run. You beeline for the hallways as the monsters continue to tear apart the thimble walls, screaming and clawing their way towards you. When you finally get to safety, you find a lone plasma cutter, a common tool for a person in your line of work, with a message written in blood right above it: aim for the limbs. With that advice, your engineering tool has been repurposed to cut flesh instead of steel. What a hell of an introduction. God damn, everything about the opening of Dead Space 2023 is peak examples of game design and world building. While admittedly a bit slow, Dead Space shows you the atmosphere, the threat, how they function, and how to defeat them before you even pull the trigger. Everything from here on is just building onto the foundation. Before we break into combat, I want to tell you about the rig. That big blue tube on Isaac's spine represents his health, and the various other meters indicate how much of a certain resource you have left. More on those later. But this is a genius alternative of displaying a character's health and abilities rather than relying on an on-screen HUD. Dead Space takes its environment very seriously and doesn't have any type of screen icons to take you away from the immersion of its world. Everything you need to know, from health to informative diagrams, is purposed as a utility on Isaac's engineer suit, either in the forms of meters or projected holograms. This choice in design enhances the game's horror elements, really making the player feel like they're walking in Isaac's shoes. We can only see what he sees, and if you want more information, then you have to make the conscious decision to stop and risk being exposed to an attack while you figure out what to do next. Now for the necromorphs. They're big, ugly, and come in a variety of forms that determine their speed, abilities, and health. They all have one thing in common though. The best way to beat them is by hacking them apart with your weapons, be it by saw blade, plasma, or flames. Headshots are not the answer. We've all heard of the fight or flight response, right? Well, Dead Space's combat relies on a combination of both. You'll be wandering down the eerie hallway and then BAM! Necromorph busts through the wall, and now you're running away, praising God that your spacesuit is already brown. Pants full and rage building, you then turn back around to end the alien horror. This combat remarkably never gets stale. Every interaction with a necromorph feels like a desperate fight for survival, and you have to make use of your tools and the environment around you to survive. Ammo is common, but the pickups are small, and you burn through it quickly, so taking advantage of your spacesuit's other abilities will benefit you in the long run. You are equipped with a stasis module, as well as a telekinesis glove, to help you fight back against the undead aliens and solve the various puzzles above the Ishimura. Stasis slows down whatever its projectile comes in contact with. This can be used to slow down machinery that obstructs your path or the enemies you're fighting, making aiming for the limbs just a little bit easier. While beneficial, the uses of this ability are limited and require the consumption of stasis packs or recharge stations to be used again. Telekinesis is pretty self-explanatory. You look at something and you move it with your mind. Move objects out of your way or chuck them at enemies to slow them down. Some objects can chop off limbs if you're lucky enough to find them. This tool really encourages the player to be aware of their surroundings, making strategic decisions when fighting, using the environment to save on resources. Don't forget to double tap though. Stomping or punching a necromorph's corpse rewards you with an assured elimination and a small amount of ammo, health pack, or money. And all of this wouldn't be as impactful without the incredible design of the Ishimura. The Ishimura is littered with secrets, weapons, and instances of environmental storytelling, and yes, necromorphs. You rarely feel safe when traversing this wretched space station. Where treasure lies, there's also a threat to greet you. You will have to make difficult decisions like choosing to reroute the power between the lights or a door that could hold valuable supplies. You even have instances of zero gravity, warping your perception and occasionally having limited oxygen in the process, adding multiple levels of tension when exploring or fighting. Alien biomass is everywhere and can block certain pathways. Thankfully, it can be destroyed should you find the life sac. Not everything works against you though. Isaac is an engineer after all, and he can take advantage of the multiple workbenches located across the Ishimura to upgrade his weapons and suit, with the use of power nodes that you can find looting the various containers on the ship. And take my advice on this. You want to play this game like a pack rat. Search every nook and cranny, open every locker, and leave no loot behind. Ammo is a necessity, as well as health and stasis packs. Plus, having a couple extra credits on hand wouldn't hurt you, as you can purchase all the resources mentioned from the shop's kiosks. This is actually a quality of life change made from the original title. Power nodes were not originally available for purchase before. This gives the player more freedom to upgrade their tools, feeling less constricted, encouraging experimentation with the game's arsenal. The Ishimura is scary, and the necromorphs truly made it their home, but thanks to Isaac's knowledge as an engineer and your instincts, there is plenty to take advantage of so you can fight back. And I'm happy to say that I did not have too many problems when playing. The movement felt tight and well calibrated to the design of the game's map, combat was engaging, the puzzles were fun, and every weapon felt great to use. The only issue I had was the rare enemy pop-in, which honestly was more funny to me than annoying, and the occasional rude necromorph that would bother me while I browsed Space Amazon. One thing that really took me by surprise was how invested I was in the plot of Dead Space. The most impactful change they made with this remake was giving Isaac a voice. The addition of his dialogue, combined with the rewriting of the old script, really adds depth to the struggle these characters go through. Kendra and Zack are constantly at each other's throats, throwing who's to blame back and forth on whose idea it was to bring them here, while Isaac desperately tries to keep them together. Audio and text logs give you a glimpse into the Ishimura's past, revealing the drama the crew went through, leading to the sequence of events that turned the station into a necromorph clubhouse. Isaac desperately wants to find his wife, Nicole, but every time he gets one step closer, another issue arises, resetting his progress. About halfway through the game, you start to learn about the cult, the Church of Unitology. These people worship an artifact called the Icon, a powerful alien monolith that corrupts the minds of humans and leads them to believe in the concept of unification. The idea and end goal are never fully explained, but based on the aliens you fight, how they function, and what you learn about them through the game's lore with the cult, I believe it's to unite as a hive mind to achieve some cosmic enlightenment from an ancient being. Isaac's constant interaction with the alien artifacts, combined with the stress of his current situation, causes him to hallucinate, questioning what is real. But his will to live and his mission to rescue Nicole keep him going. This feeling is greatly emphasized with the addition of his voice. And even though Isaac is very capable on his own, his one flaw is that he's way too trustworthy, leading him to get betrayed. A lot. I mean, really, not one person seemed like they were 100% on board with each other, but Isaac believes the best strategy is sticking together, and with the common goal of getting the hell off the ship, he thinks this concept alone is enough to keep them together. The Dead Space 2023 remake is a wonderful example of a remastered blast from the past, but let's see how it compares to a game that I believe aged like a fine wine. So, would you kindly climb into the bathysphere and explore the depths of rapture in the hit 2000's title, Bioshock Remastered?
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture.
Bioshock is one of those games that I come back to visit once per year, and each time I return, I learn something new about Rapture and the crazy characters that reside in it. Released originally in 2007, Bioshock took the world by storm with one of the most artistically deranged first-person shooter experiences on the market, and it all starts with a plane crash. The introduction of Bioshock is one of a kind. You start off in a plane looking at some old pictures, then all of a sudden, you're in the water. Plane debris is flying everywhere. A propeller almost saws you in half, so you swim urgently to the surface, only to be surrounded by the flames from the burning oil of the engines. Off in the distance, you see this ominous tower, barely illuminated by the lanterns attached to it. In any other circumstance, you would avoid such an eerie structure, but after what just happened, it's the best chance you got. Once inside, you're surrounded by darkness. Then the lights turn on to reveal a golden statue of a man, emphasized with the banner below him that reads, "No gods or kings, only man." We make our way down and discover a strange submersible. Pulling the lever begins our descent, and we hear that famous line. The incredible city of Rapture is revealed to us, an undersea utopia built for the men entitled to the sweat of their brow. Those who wander here are not led by gods or kings, but by others who pursue the sweet fruits of their labor. Or at least that's what we're led to believe. The docking of the bathysphere leads to a different setting than what was described. All we see is darkness and the brutal murder of an innocent man who is slashed apart by some humanoid monster. A message plays to the left of us.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio? I don't know how you survived that plane crash, but I've never been one to question Providence. I'm Atlas, and I aim to keep you alive. Now keep on moving. We're gonna have to get you to higher ground.
This is Atlas, a young Irishman who wishes to escape the hell city of Rapture with his wife and kid, but needs your help due to the mutated abominations called splicers running throughout the city. He then asks us if we would kindly exit the bathysphere and that we would kindly pick up the closest blunt object near us. A hop, skip, and a wrench smack later, we find a strange vending machine, labeled Gatherer's Garden. We then find a strange-looking bottle, and like any sane person, we grab that shit and inject it directly into our bloodstream. Oh yeah, that's some real 60s vibes right there. Whatever substance we just put into our body has rewritten our genetic code and has given us the power of a god, a fistful of lightning that we can use to stun the splicers and bonk them on the head with our wrench. And all I have to say is, what in the absolute hell is happening? Never have I been so dumbfounded by an introduction of a game. There was no explanation of our mission, barely any introduction of who our main character is, and of all things to be revealed, I sure as hell didn't expect to see Times Square in the Pacific Ocean. Yet, I'm beyond invested and want to keep going. Bioshock enchants you with the element of surprise, scares the living hell out of you, and then gives you the power of a thunderstorm in the palm of your hand and tells you to go wild. Now that's my kind of intro. Bioshock takes the survival horror genre and literally builds its own city around it. Throughout your playthrough, you will flip between the question of, are you trapped with them, or are they trapped with you? As you scavenge the wrecked city, finding weapons, plasmids, and genetic upgrades that turn you into a force to be reckoned with. Yet despite being a genetically mutated powerhouse, the spliced victims of Rapture are not to be taken lightly, as their addictive nature has turned them into something truly deranged. Each area you encounter delivers its own unique atmosphere, with hidden details littered throughout the game's levels, telling a story with every discovery. Every atrocity you find, whether it happened in the past or is taking place right in front of you, tells a tale of depravity, perfection, obsession, and other intense feelings. Audio logs dive deep into the perspective of the characters and the struggles they face before Rapture turned into a hellscape. Some appear more than others, and some are just one-offs that tell you about what happened in the specific area you're in, but they all have one thing in common. They are voice-acted beautifully. The delivery of these lines wraps you in the characters' emotions, making it feel like they're talking directly to you. You feel their anger, sorrow, and fear of the deteriorating city. The amount of love that went into the design of Rapture and its residents is beyond admirable. And to this day, I still discover new details about the game and piece together more details of the story through the audio logs and environmental storytelling. Just as engaging as the game's world is its combat. The genetic modification giving you superpowers is already a dead giveaway that you're in for a wild ride, so let's discuss plasmids first. As you can see with your newly acquired electric fist, the sky's the limit when it comes to plasmids. These miracle injections give you the power of a god, giving you the ability to control the elements like fire, lightning, ice, and bees! There's even some that hypnotize your foes to fight on your side. But I never really used these. Setting them on fire was just too much fun. These powers come at a price though. That blue meter underneath your health bar is your Eve meter. When it's depleted, you need to inject yourself with more so you can continue to use your powers. If you run out, well, you're SOL. Plasmids don't just give you crazy powers. They can also change your physical attributes and how the world acts around you. For example, perks like Iron Skin and Electric Flesh up your defense towards physical attacks, and when you're struck, you release an electric pulse, stunning the enemies around you. Other modifiers can affect how long it takes for a security camera to detect you, or make hacking machines easier by slowing down the goop or less security tiles on the grid. Speaking of hacking, learn it, love it, rely on it. Probably a good 30% of this footage is me hacking anything I can get my hands on. It can turn the tides of a fight or save you when you're running low on resources. If it's a machine, you can hack it. Hacking vending machines reduces their prices and sometimes can drop you free items. Hacking health dispensaries lowers the cost of a full heal, and if splicers try to use them, it puffs poisonous gas in their face. You can also hack turrets and security bots to fight for you. The same can be done with security cameras. Having a personal eye in the sky is very helpful. Safes are by far the most difficult to hack, but will always net you the best rewards if you can crack them open. Sadly, you cannot hack the Gatherer's Garden. I kind of wish they made a unique hack minigame for this machine. Maybe you could put up some of your Atom for a chance to hack it, and if you lose it, it's gone for good, but if you win, you get some crazy good discounts. Seeing how this is literally the best machine in the game, I think having a cool hack minigame for this would really make it that much more valuable. Despite having superhuman powers and the knowledge to manipulate Rapture to fight for you, you're also quite capable with a gun. And boy, do you have a lot to play with. With 8 weapons at your disposal, you can dish out some crazy damage. It's also encouraged that you combine the uses of your plasmids and guns to make some crazy combos, making combat more engaging while saving your precious ammo, because you burn through this stuff crazy fast. And when you're poor, I don't care how good you can hack the machines, ammo is still going to be scarce. And I played this on hard, so that definitely played a big part in the amount of ammunition I had to use to put down a splicer, so take that information how you will. Every weapon feels good to use, and each has different ammo types that can help you get out of a dangerous situation, at the cost of being a more rare find. I make sure to save my armor-piercing shots for Big Daddies, and use anti-personal rounds when I'm being surrounded by splicers. And I believe now is a great time to start going into these guys, because I can't just flash a 2-ton being in a diver's suit to you and leave you hanging. It's time we talked about the splicers and the Big Daddies. I don't really know where I'm going with this joke, and I don't like its possibilities. Anyways, splicers are the most common of foes. They all look similar, but each values a different weapon, making them a force to be reckoned with when they're in groups. Some love guns, others love explosives, and some keep it simple with the goal of beating your face in. Then we have the Big Daddy. Literally. These divers are the guardians of the Little Sisters, and do not go down easily. They have a lot of health, can move surprisingly fast, and do big damage. There are 2 models of Big Daddies. The Bouncer, who will rush you down trying to pin you with its drill arm, and the Rosie, a tactical fighter that tosses landmines and is a crack shot with a rivet gun. Both have fighting styles that can be exploited through clever use of your weapons and plasmids, but there is one strategy that trumps all. Electrocute them. There's one trick with the Bouncer that's also pretty fun. Just lay down a row of 6 or 7 trap bolts, provoke him, and watch him instantly die. You might have noticed that I had to interact with him first before he attacked. The Big Daddy is like a bumblebee. It won't bother you unless you bother it. But if you manage to take one down, you can reap the rewards of their companions, the Little Sister. These demon children carry the most useful resource in the game, Atom. Atom is what grants you the ability to use your plasmids and can be spent at the Gatherer's Garden to purchase new powers or upgrade your current ones. It's also the substance that essentially brought down the society in Rapture, as it's highly addictive and if used too much, can horribly disfigure your body and make you go insane. When you encounter a Little Sister, you have 2 choices. You can harvest the slug in them that turn them into the monster before you, killing the host, but netting you more Atom. Or you can save them by rewriting their genetic code to harmlessly put the slug out of commission, saving the Little Sister. But you get less Atom this way. If you save enough of them, they might show their gratitude by leaving you some goodies by the Gatherer's Garden. But the decision is yours. The plot in Bioshock is by far its strongest attribute, but before we dive deeper into that, would you kindly click that subscribe button and like the video? It really lets me know if you enjoy this kind of content and gives me the motivation to make more. Thank you. If you haven't played Bioshock yet, I highly recommend you skip to the timestamp on screen and go experience it for yourself. I won't be going over the entire plot, but I will definitely be going over some heavy points that would be best experienced with a blind playthrough. It's your choice, but you've been warned. As we stated in the beginning of this analysis, we don't really know much about who the main character is and why we ended up in Rapture of all places. It all just sort of happened. And if it wasn't for all the crazy events that took place when we showed up, the game puts the player at risk of losing interest, at least plot-wise. And honestly speaking, Bioshock doesn't really force its plot on you besides the main encounters with the game's characters, which do fine enough on their own. But if you really sink your teeth into Bioshock's plot by observing the details of Rapture and taking the time to hunt down and listen to all the audio logs, you will be told the most beautifully sad story of the city built out of the aspirations of one man fall victim to the human flaw of greed. The game's main antagonist, Andrew Ryan, built the city of Rapture to free himself from the ideology of kings, government, and religion. The fact that a man's labor could be exploited by those who had nothing to do with the idea bothered him, so he created a utopia that freed man from the shackles of modern society and gave people the chance to prove themselves and reap the benefits of their labor. This message is said with such passion in his speech at the beginning of the game, but we as humans are flawed. Though the message is spoken with good intentions, there are those who take it way too far, and Bioshock shows you when dreams deteriorate into madness. Doctors who are obsessed with perfection mangle and disfigure innocent people. Artists searching for their magnum opus turn to sadistic methods, taking their artistic perspectives down a dark road. Innocent children are turned into monsters in order to keep the streets of Rapture corpse-free, but recycle the atom that killed them in the first place. As you unfold the stories of Rapture, you unfold the story of your character, a genetically altered child from birth, repurposed as a tool for Andrew Ryan's business rival Fontaine, the creator of the plasmids that turned everyone into freaks. You are destined to do whatever he desires with the phrase, "Would you kindly?" the very first phrase uttered by your guide, Atlas.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?
Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
This revelation of deception blew my mind and led to one of the most dramatic scenes of any video game I have ever seen. The confrontation of Andrew Ryan and the deception of Fontaine is a rare plot point that you'll barely ever see recreated in any form of modern media. Andrew Ryan's speech of the difference between men and slaves still gives me goosebumps. And with that, I believe it's time we decide a winner for Part 2 of Game Bracket 2000's Shooters Remastered. Now that the attributes of both these titans of gaming have been analyzed, it's time to see which one is worthy of taking home the gold. And I'm happy to say this has been the most difficult decision to date. Both of these titles showed exceptional examples of engaging combat, remarkable storytelling through their greatly detailed settings, and took the genre of horror and shooters to a whole new level in their own way. So, with that being said, the winner is Bioshock Remastered. I hear ya. Out of all the remastered titles to be released in the last 5 years, Dead Space deserves to be seen as a golden standard. Even its original release still holds up well to this day. Bioshock is definitely not the most remastered either, with it mostly just being an HD remake with greater frame rates. Both had exceptionally great gameplay, with Dead Space putting you against hellish aliens that needed to be hacked apart rather than follow the standard of headshots being the best shot, while Bioshock gave you superhuman abilities on top of an amazing arsenal of weaponry, allowing you to mix and match your powers and combine them with your favorite guns, giving players combos galore. Both had exceptional map design and are masters in environmental storytelling, leaving nuggets of lore in every nook and cranny for those who really want to indulge themselves in a sci-fi horror story. Honestly, this is a stone's throw away from being a tie. But the one attribute that just barely put Bioshock over Dead Space to me was the story. Not knocking Dead Space's story, it's a fine nightmare to experience, but the difference between Dead Space and Bioshock were the characters. Andrew Ryan and Fontaine are some of the greatest antagonists in video game history, and the more you learn about them through audio logs just adds more seasoning to the meat. Not to mention the other characters that we learn about and interact with. There's Tenenbaum and her story with the Little Sisters, and my personal favorite, Sander Cohen, with his descent into artistic madness, which could really be a standalone DLC if I'm being real. Sure, the characters in Dead Space are good as well, but the characters of Bioshock were shaped by and continue to impact Rapture, rather than being some cultic conspiracy you get mixed up in like in Dead Space. You are seeing the living, breathing nightmare that is Rapture and the people that made it this way. And with that, I rest my case. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned to learn the next episode's theme, and would you kindly let me know if you prefer the 4-game free-for-all or 2 rounds between 4 games each getting their own episodes. I'd greatly appreciate the feedback. Bye!